19 through 21. And let's go ahead and why don't we go ahead and read that?
And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please, I pray you, give me your son's mandrakes." And she said unto her, "It is a small matter that you have taken my husband. So wilt thou take away my son's mandrakes too?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he shall lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in unto me, for surely I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night.
God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my manservant to my husband." And she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. Sometime later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys. I was just, am I the only one that thinks this is kind of funny? Can you imagine this as a play where the lines are exactly as this? Can you imagine how they would cast that play? "Jacob, you need to come into me." Okay. What's that?
I've got these mandrakes I bought.
Mandrake. What the heck is a mandrake? You know. Oh, it's so funny reading the commentators on mandrake. There are probably volumes written on this of what this is. Whoa. We got to get this over here. Some sort of plant, evidently an aphrodisiac plant. And so the story continues of these two, the contest growing, the growing contest with these two sisters, Rachel and Leah. And so I wrote up here a little cartoon here, you know, "Give me your mandrakes. I want your mandrakes," whatever those are. And then the next slide, you know, Rachel's got this idea. She's seeing herself as small. Again, she's the small one in the picture. She's got this idea, I can win by getting mandrakes, so give me your mandrakes. And then the next frame is, "What? And get ripped off again?" You know, that was Leah's response. Now coming from the less than perspective, that she views her sister as one who is taking from her. And so the story continues. It's the same thing we've been looking at over and over again. And so here's the little model that let's call this the engine. This is the engine that I've come up with in my head to explain what we've been talking about the last few weeks. This engine is, first of all, within a context here. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
I just figured out how to use that last night. And the context, the triangle represents God. And so this is happening, all that is happening in this family that we've been reading about is within the context of a faith-based family. Nice Jewish family. Yeah. And so to counter the idea, lest we think we're exempt because we're in faith-based context, again, I want to bring this down to home because this speaks to me. Maybe I'm the only one, but these are the things I struggle with. It was what we're talking about. So it's within a God context. And the engine that's driving this activity goes like this. First of all, and we've talked about this, it starts with a less than perspective, the reason this is happening is because both women at given times see themselves as less than, so they feel they need to act in order to improve their position. And I'm suggesting that is a normative approach that we take as human beings. Well, I need to increment up here, and there's the arrow, because I need to win. I need to win. That's what's important, is I need to win. And the little pair of eyeballs there is just simply the perspective. Doesn't mean that it's true. You know, think about the gift here. Leah is she is about to give birth to two more sons. Issachar, was it Issachar? Yeah. Issachar and Zebulun. Issachar means wages. Zebulun means abiding or dwelling with. And of course, the name is tied into her words of why she named the child the way she did. Zebulun means to dwell with. Now my husband will dwell with me. Now my husband will love me. Finally, 6 kids, six boys. And so, in one regard, she's given birth to 6 sons. Wow, one perspective would be, God, I am so blessed by God. And she says that, but it's not over for her. It's not good enough. She's trying to reach a goal. And guys, the point is that in our perspective, we are blessed as men beyond measure, but the human tendency is it's not good enough. If I only had this, if I only could get to here, that is where we struggle. And it's a matter of perspective, the eyeballs. Okay, so this is the engine, and we're going to apply the engine we're going to apply the engine to the text at hand in just a couple minutes. But before we do, I'd like to ask us to go around and answer this question. I think we know us well enough. When you see this phrase, when I lose, I feel. Arthur, what's your first thing that comes to mind? When I lose, I feel
unworthy.
Unworthy. That's very honest. Bill.
Responsible.
What?
Responsible.
Responsible.
Similar to Arthur's, not good enough.
Boy, these are very honest responses, guys.
What could I have done better?
Is
What
that
could I have done differently?
is that yours, Carl?
You know,
That's kind of where I'm at too. I want another try.
Inadequate.
And then help. That says inadequate, guys. Just for time. But Jim, you had.
Well, basically, the same as Carl. So, what could I have done different? But can I get another try at it?
Yeah. So you're up to you're going to lace those boots up and try it again. Yeah. Understand. Okay. Jack.
Yeah, I would have said challenged, kind of like along the lines of what Jim was saying. Just let's go do it again.
Okay. So can I make that 3?
Yeah, I think so.
You okay with 3, Jack?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to say do it again. That's honorable.
the other day I had a little experience. Something, I think I know what it was. Things weren't going wrong, and I said, I don't know if I said it to Ginger. I think at the end I said, well, all things work together for good to those that love the Lord. And I said, I think we need to change our concentration on instead of the circumstances, to put our concentration on loving Jesus, rather than I need another try or whatever.
Yeah, good.
So,
Yeah.
it's kind of a little bit of a turning point for me in this particular situation.
good, very good. All right, you guys right here. What is your word? Or for
Strive.
what's that?
Strive or work harder.
Oh, work harder. Wow. That's what I do. I come from, my genetics is farming. And what farmers do when things go wrong, they just work harder. Yeah.
Replant the block.
Bob?
I get embarrassed and then from there either good things happen or bad things happen.
Embarrassing.
Embarrassment.
How you process embarrassment.
These are so honest. Thank you. Jeff? Shame. Wow. Is that everybody? I think so.
Dissatisfied.
Oh, Steve.
Dissatisfied.
Dissatisfied?
Does anybody ever feel relief?
See the what?
Anyone ever feel relief when you lose?
Well, if you really lose badly,
Time to change.
it's
It's
over.
It's done. I'm out of here.
What do these words tell us about our perception as a group?
Mostly negative
Yeah.
responses.
We don't like it.
What's that?
We don't like it.
No, losing is uncomfortable. Losing involves everything from, Jeff used the word shame, which is a huge word, very honest word. Not good enough. Responsible. Shame is just, taking on this weight of what I'm not, a coat that is, destructive. It's this self-shame to I'm not good enough, to, by golly, I don't like this, just get up and do it again. Yeah.
There's actually two things you see on every one of them. Number one, it's a distraction, what the real situation is. Number two, it's an attitude of, I'm gonna do it again myself, was after I said that, that's all on just me.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Looking outside of me. But it is a distraction from whatever the real problem that you failed at.
Yeah. Okay. Did you guys hear that? Jim has named it as a distraction. It pulls us away. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
We're at the center of it, though. I mean, somehow we're responsible. Every one of these things puts us at the center of the reason of the loss or something. We have to bear the burden of the loss, or we cause the loss, or whatever it was. It comes down to me.
Yeah, that's the way I've got an image in my head of us sitting there, me sitting there, and when I lose, arrows are all pointing to me, like it's all me.
Bill's response there on relief is kind of interesting. Relief, maybe we try to think of ourselves too highly and we end up failing, and there is that sense of relief when we turn things over to God and, okay, God, this, kind of coming back to this, all things working together for good. Was I really trusting you in this thing, or was I trying to work it? A lot of times, I try to work it, make things happen, whatever.
I think-
Relief is trusting God.
Yeah, relief is a good word to think about. But I think your point in that is that you kind of took a juxtaposition of what you see on this list. Is that our natural in this group, of being a very honest group, we said our first response when we lose, we don't like it. It's uncomfortable. We tend to heap it on ourselves at all levels of emotion, from shame and what I meant to say just a little bit ago is Bill said responsible. And I would guess that's the case for many of you, because you guys are responsible men, and the whole thing of, wow, what a knucklehead, well, how could I let this happen, I'm responsible, I'm so bad. Those are the kinds of tapes that we play naturally, and to take upon that herself. You know, picture that little guy sitting there, you and me, with all those arrows, you know, lost. Picture the words lost underneath. I just lost. And all the arrows pointing in. Woe is me. That's what we're saying as our response. So let's move on and let's look at then the story. And I've identified 3 movements within the story. Rachel has in the cartoon, she's thinking, oh, a chance to get one step forward, right? The mandrakes, that's the subject. The mandrakes. I gotta have the mandrakes. Somebody else has the mandrakes, and I could utilize those mandrakes to the max if I had those. And so I want your mandrakes, okay? Well, and so she says, let's make a deal. Interesting, Leah is the older sister, but Rachel is really functioning in this relationship as the older sister. Rachel seems to be the dominant one. She's the one that is making the deal. And Leah's response is, you know, you took away, Leah is taking a victim posture, you took away my husband, how much more, or, you know, I can't remember how she's cast it, but she says, what does she say there?
You want my son's mandrakes?
Yeah, you want my, yeah, is that not good enough? Do you want my son's mandrakes as well? Okay, you know, she's seeing victim here. But then counter proposal, or let's make a deal, sister comes back and says, I'll tell you what, you give me your mandrakes, I'll let you sleep with him tonight. So she must have some level of control. Is she the gatekeeper for who has sex with Jacob? I don't know. She's this one that appoints, you know, okay, you, and what is Jacob's role here? He's just a guy coming in from the field. Opportunity for sex? That sounds good. I mean, kind of what, you know, we're, the humanness of this whole thing is amazing. So, okay, so let's make a deal is step 1. And the text is silent on any more exchange. It was a very quick exchange. Leah made the deal. And so she goes out, and you can picture this, guys, in your mind. You know, Jacob coming in after a hard day's work in the field, and this confrontational kind of the very direct approach is, you need to come into me. Okay, you know, and so, you know, they have sexual relations that evening, and then of course the rest of the story is next. Next movement in the story, Leah's apparent success. It worked. Of course, it worked. She became pregnant, and then, of course, 9 months pass, and she gives birth to a son, Issachar, which means gift or wages, and she sees herself. Let me back up for a minute. Let's make a deal. She goes out to meet Jacob. What does she say to Jacob? You know, you need to come into me for what reason?
I bought you.
I bought you. Wow, is something missing here? You know, they're husband and wife, but I made a deal for you. I'm in a deal, and you are part of this deal, and you need to satisfy your function within this deal. Yes?
You know, there's not a whole lot of dissimilarity between Jacob and Esau and Leah and Rachel.
Oh, no.
There's a story, and there was a deal made there for birthright.
Yeah.
And you're kind of a reap what you sow situation going on.
Isn't it true that those things tend to perpetuate within families? I mean, it does.
But this wasn't the last time with Jacob.
She what?
This was not the last time with Jacob. I mean, that maybe Rachel is doorkeeper on this time, but the next paragraph, she has another kid.
Yeah.
And so
It's true. Yeah.
It's not like Rachel, I don't think, was prohibiting Jacob from having sex with Leah. I don't know.
How do you see God in this picture?
You know,
that is a great question.
That's a very
Verse
good-
verse 17, you know, sort of the editorial comment, God listened to Leah
Yeah.
in the midst of the deal making.
These are pagans.
Man, these are mysterious
The
things.
things we forget, this isn't Israel, these are pagans. Abraham may have listened to God, but we're still operating in a very pagan culture.
Yeah, these aren't Jews yet.
These aren't Jews yet. There's no rules here. There's no. It's. I mean, later they'll run and Rachel brings her gods with her. I mean, they're still a pagan society, you know. Yeah, I mean, they're somehow understanding God, but I don't. We shouldn't over Israelite these guys. These are pagans.
Okay. So she gives birth. Issachar, we talked about that, wages. She's thinking in terms of reward for action, not in relationship. She then gives birth to the sixth son, very fruitful woman, Zebulun, which means, now he will dwell with. Finally, oh my goodness, finally I can get there because I've given him six sons. She said this before, in the text I think back in chapter 29:34, again she became pregnant, had a son, named him Levi, meaning attachment, right there. For she said, surely now my husband will feel affection for me since I've given him now three sons. She's in the same rut. Three sons later. She's not moving beyond this idea of wage, of performance, of trying to attain something, trying to gain love by my actions. Does this sound familiar? Wow.
I think still a great deal of her motivation is the fact that she knew that she was not Jacob's first choice. And all of this time she's still trying to prove herself.
I have no doubt, and that's a good insight, yeah. So
Even after all this time, she's still.
Well, the first morning, you would know that you were a reject. What have you done to me? I got a question.
So-
Everybody was saying these are not people of the covenant. This is Jacob's children. And Jacob, Abraham, Isaac,
Yeah.
Jacob are the covenant people,
Yeah.
which are what becomes Jacob is.
Yeah.
Do they have the covenant yet?
I was, Bill mentioned these were pagan people. I think these are pagan people. They're dealing with realities, and God is in the mix.
Well, that's my perspective. I think God is very much, these people are, God is in their language.
Yeah, pagans had God very much involved in their lives, but it was a mixed bag of
Yeah.
superstition and stuff. I'm not saying they're godless, but they're wrestling with who's God.
Yeah.
He talked to Abraham,
Just for sake of moving on here, my perspective, we're all entitled to our perspective. I prefer to look at the text as rather than us and they, it's we and we. Because I know that as a believer in Jesus Christ, I struggle with the same thing these people are struggling with. So therein lies the correlation in my mind. So Leah's apparent success, and then finally the last movement. You see how it's forming a circle here, a flow. Really, what goes around comes around. Here's our little engine over here, and Leah's apparent success is pointing right back to the truth of what's driving the engine. The fuel of this engine is less than. It's this perception of less than. Now I've borne 6 sons for my husband. Now he will finally dwell with me. The reason is because she feels unaccepted. She feels unacceptable. And that's what has to drive this engine. And so what goes around comes around. It just keeps going on and keeps going on and keeps going on. So
It's interesting, Mike, sort of the circle and, 6 tries here,
Yeah.
expecting a different result. In the 1990s, Psychobabble had the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah.
And,
I've done
by
that.
that slang psychology, she's a little bit insane,
Uh-huh.
like all of us.
I put myself in that, because I've done that, Steve. I've done the same kind of thing, 'cause it's all I know. Keep doing it.
In our relationship with God, we try to do the same thing. Well, if I do this, do that, do this, do that, and then maybe God will accept me. And it's really hard for us to get our hands on and our head around the fact that Jesus loves me just the way I am. That's
So-
hard to fathom.
Okay, what I want to ask, and we got 5 minutes here, and I ask you at the beginning, what does it feel like to lose? Or what is it like? When I lose, I feel like this passage about winning and losing. We're seeing that through the text many times now that this circle is continuing because of this need to win. How does that relate to the assessment in this group about how we feel when we lose? How does the feeling of loss relate to this story? What we experience when we lose.
Well, I think I experienced all those feelings that we listed there, especially when I was younger, but, you know, at my age, my perspective changes a little bit. I'm a golfer, and it used to really hurt when I lose. Anymore, I get beat so much that I'm used to it. So I lower my expectations
Yeah.
and enjoy life.
Boy, do you guys hear that on this side of the room? Yeah.
There's a relief in
And
that.
I just enjoy.
There's a
going out
relief in it.
with my friends. I don't strive.
It's almost like when we lose, what we do afterwards, it seems like we're sometimes trying to change history. I mean, something has happened, and it's happened. And it's happened. I mean, there's nothing you can do to erase it. It's how you move forward from there in a changing attitude. I've tried to learn increasingly as I get old in a game or a process or a project that to a very significant degree, it isn't the end result that's most important, it's the process of getting there. It's what you learn, how do you react, how do you interact and in going through that process. So that if similar things come up again, you can say, oh, I can do this differently because I learned before.
Mm-hmm.
So the absolute goal of winning the game, quote unquote, you may not reach. But I think for example, any accomplished athlete will tell you he's been around long enough to know that he's not always going to win, but what he learns in the processes of competing is what keeps him coming back and keeps him going.
I think it's a real picture of being humble. And as we humble ourselves, we can, we're really that important right now. Look how our Savior humbled himself from the throne to the cross. And he was victorious. So it depends on what is your definition of winning?
Wow. Everyone around the cross looked at Jesus and said, you lose. You know?
And yet we're all sitting here knowing in the depth of our knowers that we're winners because of Jesus.
Yeah, and also, I have to bring this up again. Jesus said here, abide in me and I in you. As a branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. I think that redefines the whole thing, if you really meditate on this. And for me as a violin teacher, and I've said this many times here, this verse is what keeps me. I feel I failed a lot at institutes, but again, I've been invited to Alaska, Missoula, Chicago, and I can't figure it out. I'm a little fish. This is a bigger pond than Oshkosh, but I'm a minnow swimming in a mud puddle. But because I really have held to this, even when I've lost and felt not good enough, I can turn to him, and fruit has come out of my work. Fruit has come out. I get letters from people. I said, how did that happen? One day I was at a funeral, and one of my favorite teachers from Evansville, Indiana, said, you know, I've come here. I want to tell you something. I have a student in class who had you in a group, and I asked, who has influenced you most in this group of students? And he said, Everett Goodwin. Now, where does that come from? I don't even remember the guy.
Yeah.
He was just a little kid in a class. Now he's a college student. But to me, that's Jesus.
Absolutely.
Doing his work. I may have even felt like I lost in that class.
So maybe what we're saying is losing isn't so bad.
Isn't so bad. But also, what is fruit? Because he keeps talking about that. Jesus says you are to bear fruit. And that's maybe not having babies in that context. Maybe.
Well, we'll end there. It's 7:31. We'll let you guys go. Pick it up next week. Thank you for your discussion. Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, Mike. You're welcome. It's good to come here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And bless the restaurant.
Yeah, bless the restaurant.